of this meeting is to consider Delaware County's appeal.
I apologize. Is Sandra Garrison on?
I'm here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry, Sandra. Thank you.
I
apologize for interrupting.
I assume Sandra is going to be the one giving the presentation.
No, I'll give the presentation, but I just wanted to make sure she was on. She's our Chief of Social Services and Community Programs, so she has a lot of the factual information should there be questions. I'm relatively new to the county, so I wanted to make sure I had a.
Okay, great.
Right.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to the meeting. I would like to make the typical announcements before we get started. This meeting of the Pennsylvania Opioid Misuse and Addiction Abatement Trust Dispute Resolution Committee has been duly advertised as a public meeting in accordance with the Sunshine Act and is therefore open to members of the public as observers. Participation in this meeting is limited to Delaware County as a beneficiary under the trust order and its designated representatives, trustees on the DRC, and those that the trustees have invited in advance to take part. This meeting is being recorded and minutes from the meeting will be available on the trust website after they're all approved. An executive session was held today immediately prior to this public meeting for purposes of receiving legal updates and legal advice, and we also discussed whether or not to grant certain extensions of time without taking any formal vote. Could I ask for a approval of the minutes of the February 20th, 2025 meeting, which were in your packet?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Tumar. Second?
Second, Kevin Boozle.
Thank you, Kevin. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we will move right on to the to Delaware County. Can we have a formal introduction, if you don't mind, from the representatives of Delaware County so we know exactly who we're talking to?
I am Marriott Moyman. I'm a deputy solicitor with the Solicitor's Office at Delaware County, and on the phone is also on the call is also Sandra Garrison, who is our Chief of Social Services and Community Programs. Good.
Thank you very much. With that, the floor is yours from Delaware County to present your case as to why we should have approved the Divide Lucas chest compression device, which was originally submitted and which was turned down first by the working group that was dealing with it, and then by the entire trust. So we look forward to your presentation, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. As I was reviewing the materials, I was trying to understand perhaps why it was rejected, and I explored Exhibit E to understand whether it fit within the parameters of Exhibit E. And in my review and understanding, it does, because the cardiac arrest is one of the primary causes of death in an opioid overdose. And I guess the opioids cause the MU receptors in the brain to slow down or stop breathing. Narcan is an effective solution for that, but it often takes 5 to 7 minutes or 2 to 5 minutes to work. And during that time, often oxygen needs to be given and gotten to the brain. And so CPR is an effective way of getting the oxygen into the brain. There has been studies that and support for using opioid funds to increase the CPR awareness and the response to an opioid overdose with CPR. And I cited that in the appeal material. Obviously, it's not binding, but it's something to consider where it's been used elsewhere. The reason the Lucas device is so beneficial is that it allows the responder to perform multiple tasks. So opioid overdoses often happen in group settings because there are sometimes more than one individuals taking the drug at the time, and it may involve more than one patient at the same time. And so what it does is it frees up a responder to be able to address individuals by performing the CPR once they put it onto the individual, so that oxygen gets to one individual and they can assist with another. The CPR is manually physically demanding, and over time the quality can decline with different responders, the strength of the responders, the chaos of a scene, what's going on, how many people are there. And this overcomes responder fatigue, and it also allows folks to be able to consistently provide effective CPR. It also has suction, and there was an article that said that with the opioid use, it softened something, and this is more technical and medical than I can provide, but the suction was important in decompressing, in assisting in the decompression of the chest. So it was a little bit more than just a CPR. I know that in the, I think, factual questions to the opioid information, there was the AED machine, which was excluded from something that was covered, but this is much different than an AED machine. In fact, what it does is it allows somebody that is experiencing an opioid overdose to be able to get the effective treatment of CPR, oxygen to their brain, and at the same time, while the compressions are continuing, somebody can be administering an AED machine at the same time. So it's one person that can respond, and it allows for a more efficient providing of services. While the compressions are happening, the Narcan can be administered, and it allows them to be able to administer the Narcan without delaying the CPR. Also, it allows the person to free up time to address the airways and the ventilation and to prepare for transport. Also, when they're transporting the individual, it allows for the individual to be continuing to receive a consistent compression of the chest while they're in the either ambulance, helicopter, or whatever it is that's being transported, and the responder is safe in that they can be properly safe belted into their seat while the patient is being taken to the hospital. So it increases the likelihood of success of a patient that has experienced this situation. In advance, the potential exposure to the opioid for a first responder that's providing manual CPR and being exposed to the respirations is enhanced if they're doing manual CPR. This protects the responders also by minimizing the contact with folks, unless obviously they need to provide oxygen mouth to mouth. But the studies show that the pressure of moving the blood with the oxygen is often getting the oxygen into the brain that's needed in those types of emergency situations. I do have a small video that I was able to locate that shows a visual of this. It's only 2 minutes long, and if you'd like, I can figure out how to share my screen on.
I would like to see it, but could I ask a question before you
Yes.
get started? Originally, at least in the original submission that you had made seeking approval of this, you had asked for an amount of $175,500. How many machines was that intended to cover?
I think that each machine, go ahead.
I was gonna say that was approved for 6 machines. That was based on our county council's approval.
And would that be enough machines for all of the EMT vehicles in the county, or how did you pick 6? Or were there already some in use?
That would allow the various departments to utilize, but would not cover all of the county. It would only cover a portion of it, but it would allow the various departments to utilize them as they saw fit.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question while we're on this topic.
Certainly, Kevin.
My name is Kevin Booz. I'm a county commissioner in Butler County. I'm also an EMT and first responder firefighter. I have a lot of questions around this application only because I've used the device. It is not a required apparatus on a rig. It's not required. So understanding that you have to get over that hurdle in my mind is what is the benefit? Because number one, I've been on many opioid overdose. Never have I had to use a Lucas device. Nor do I feel that it would, this is my personal opinion, nor do I feel that it would have made a difference in the response or the outcomes. And so that's my personal. Now, the other side of that is, my question is, do you feel that this is going to be used in the field more for an OUD case or just general heart attacks that you would see in the field?
I think this is different from a heart attack in the sense that it is cardiac arrest. So it is slightly I think it's from my, and you'll have more experience than I do in terms of
Okay.
the medical aspect of this, but from my understanding of it, it's the drug that causes the mu in the brain to cause the body to stop breathing or stop, and or to slow its breathing or stop. And it's that lack of oxygen that leads to the cardiac arrest. And I think it is used in any situation, and any one individual that is protected or saved from this, it's a valuable thing. And whether it's because of a cardiac arrest or because the opioid caused the cardiac arrest is in some ways irrelevant. It's really the effect of the cardiac arrest and getting the oxygen to the brain quickly and dealing with a difficult situation.
Okay, thank you. Other questions at this time before we look at the video?
Could I ask a quick question of Commissioner Boozle? Can you talk a little bit about why you've not used a Lucas compression device during an overdose? Because I think that's important. I think I know the answer, but I would be curious.
Most of the time they're not available. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, by the time you respond and get there, I don't know if you've ever connected somebody to a Lucas device. It takes time. You still got to administer CPR and chest compressions prior, because it takes time to get that machine set up. Number one, you got to bring it in, which typically is not the first thing they bring in an overdose. I've been on an overdose in Pittsburgh, and I've been on a cardiac arrest. The cardiac arrest, knowing it's a cardiac arrest, they brought it, but they did not bring it for an opioid overdose. So to me, I don't know what the standards are, but I know that this device does not meet what the standard response is. That's what I do know. So I'm not going to debate whether or not it could have a better outcome, but I question, somebody said it earlier, if I had the choice to buy an ambulance or I had the choice to buy this device, which one comes first? Well, you can't get the device there unless you have the ambulance, right? And so the other side of it is, if you're using the ambulance for all patients, right? How much of the ambulance can you pay for out of your OUD money if you respond to 10 in a year or 20 in a year? I don't know what your numbers are. I'm just throwing it out. So how do you justify a full cost, and where does that limit become a factor? This is one of those limiting factors. These are not very inexpensive. They are very expensive machines. And if someone could show me, and I don't know the number, I've never in my world that I live in, never have seen this device used on an overdose ever. It may be because it's not available, but I've not seen it. So that's my history of it. Thank you.
Well, and in
George,
fairness,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
I was going to say, in fairness, I did do some research to try and find the connection between the opioid overdose and this equipment, and there is not a lot of direct evidence-based usage of it. However, the information that I found regarding the increase in teaching about CPR and the effectiveness of teaching CPR, and then obviously there's a lot of medical evidence-based information about how this improves CPR and whether or not you agree with it. I think it's true. It's a machine that's not readily available to folks, but in looking at it from a logical perspective, in terms of efficacy, it does free up the first responders to treat difficult situations. And I think it depends on the situation. And like I said, if it's on the machine and if it's on the trucks and available for use, then people are properly trained to get it quickly on, it is certainly a beneficial thing.
I could ask a question. This is Rob Postal, Mifflin County Commissioner. This goes to Ms. Garrison, but the answer, I think Tom asked the question. There are 6 that are intended to be purchased. Or are they, does that include all EMTs, or are they sharing this? I got the impression that they're sharing this device. Am I wrong?
Right, the devices would be housed by our emergency services, the county's office, and then they could be utilized by the various EMTs across the county.
I see. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, I certainly appreciate, obviously, we all do what the EMTs do, but if there's a call through our 911, so then the EMT needs to come to your center, pick this device up and then, I guess, go out and treat it? Is that how that's going to work?
No, I believe they would be kept on the trucks. They've already been doing training for folks using these machines with folks coming in and showing the EMTs how to use the machines. And I believe that they would be housed on the trucks. And whether
prior to making the request and prior to getting the opioid money, and I think I got this from your original submission. Are there Lucas devices that were already in use in Delaware County? I'm sorry,
Coming across mute for me, Chairman.
is coming across mute for me also.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why. I'm sorry, your question.
the question was, do you have Lucas devices
Oh.
in place and in the county right now?
I don't believe that we do. And Sandy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that it is a tool that they have been working with the manufacturer on to understand the opportunities for it. And they have been training on it. And it's something that they're hopeful to obtain. We have a large county and the resources would be well utilized.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we see the video? Okay, let it roll.
Okay, and I'm used to doing this on Teams, so I just need to make sure I'm sharing
I have
and
to.
I get the right screen.
Okay, here you go. I had to allow you to be a co-host.
Okay. And then I have 3 screens. I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right one. Share. There we go. Okay. Can you all see that?
No,
Oh, not yet. Hold on. It should be. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, I apologize. And this is just a news video, but I thought it was helpful because it showed the equipment in use. And it also, from an EMT's perspective, explained the value of it. And I understand that it is not specific to an overdose or an opioid situation. However, like I said before, there are folks that are responding to a scene, and sometimes there are more than one individuals that need assistance. And this frees up the EMTs to be able to prioritize and treat the recipient in the most efficient and effective way possible.
As you may know, cardiac arrest is when the heart stops beating. Few people survive when it happens outside a hospital, but CPR can double, maybe even triple the chances of your survival.
Well, now there is a new high-tech CPR device that is helping improve patients' chances of survival. It's called a Lucas device, and it keeps the chest compressions going even while first responders are moving the patient or when they're being transported to the hospital.
News Center Maine's Vivian Lee has much more on this from Lewiston.
When someone goes into cardiac arrest, it's often seconds between life and death. This machine, called the Lucas device, essentially takes over chest compressions and frees up the hands of first responders.
Now it's giving time to give 2 breaths, and then it goes right back into the compressions.
The end goal with CPR, we're looking to have oxygen flow to the brain.
The device is strapped onto the patient, each compression going about 100 beats a minute. Manual compressions can be tiring and less effective.
There's a lot of room for error. I might not be giving as strong of a compression as one of my peers.
Delivering precise and effective compressions, increasing a patient's chances of survival. United Ambulance Service, which covers Lewiston, Bridgeton, and several other smaller communities, has used the device on 8 patients since December. One patient wasn't breathing when paramedics arrived.
Got the device on, and it started doing its job. And that frees us up so that we can work on the airway and work on drugs and work on everything else. And within, I think, 8 minutes, He had a pulse back.
When paramedics normally place defibrillator pads on a patient's body to restart their heart, they have to stop chest compressions. With this device, those compressions never stop. The device helps keep paramedics safe when they are rushing a patient to the hospital.
If we have a device doing compressions, I can be belted in.
Only about 8% of those who suffer cardiac arrest survive. With less time off the chest, this technology is proving to be a game changer. In Lewiston, Vivian Lee, News Center, Maine.
Oh. Sorry, my volume was way turned up.
No problem.
And I need to. Okay. So I think that that is a good visual of how it can be used. I think that the other opioid uses for educating folks on CPR and the importance of CPR in an opioid overdose situation also demonstrates the benefit of an effective, efficient CPR, which we believe this to be. So we're hoping that the committee can reevaluate their decision and perhaps decide to grant the opioid money for this use, which we believe is well supported.
Thank you. I do have one other additional question. Really, it's complementary to one I asked before. I went back during the video and looked at your initial submission and a letter that you had from a Bruce Egan, and it was to the Delco Department of Emergency Services, basically to say, I am writing this letter of support of Delaware County Council, that Delaware County Council approved the purchase of Lucas devices for the citizens and visitors of Delaware County. I strongly recommend utilizing some of the dollars from the opioid settlement funding that our county is set to receive. It goes on to say some of our EMC services have purchased these devices already over the last few years. However, many departments have not. This has caused inequality of available life-saving resources. My question is, are there any of these, I think I'd asked it before, but are there any of these devices in use in Delaware County?
My understanding was that there are not. This is a gentleman that is at Crozier Health. I don't know whether or not that might be something that's going to Crozier Health, but if I could, I would like to confirm that because I don't want to misrepresent anything to the the administrators. But my understanding was that there were not. And I don't know, Sandra, if you have.
I was merely going to ask what the experience was with them, but
yeah.
Obviously, if you can't answer the question, you can't answer the question. That's fine.
Yeah, I would have hoped that they would have shared that with me and said that this has been so valuable and that we've used it in these circumstances, but that hasn't happened, which also leads me to believe that it doesn't currently exist. But Crozier may have taken folks from other areas of different counties, and they may have gone into Crozier where he's had that experience. But
just a quick question again, Mr. Chair. I'm curious if they are placing these on ALS units or BLS units, or are you going to look at QRS units as well? Advanced life support, basic life support, or quick response. Sorry, I tend to use acronym, and I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt because I'm thinking this is probably more of an ALS where you have a paramedic on board. Only because you're talking about giving drugs, and what I saw in your video, I can almost get my head wrapped around that because it does free that person up, the paramedic. The EMT is typically the driver trying to get them to the transport. That is,
yeah.
So I'm recognizing that. An EMT does not have the ability to put the medications in. That's my point.
Then I'm using the improper terms because I believe it's being the first responders are being trained to be able to use this equipment in a medical professional capacity. It's not necessarily going to be something that the public is available to pull like an AED machine.
Right. No, absolutely not. I wouldn't see that as an advanced tool to be out for public. But I'm saying on an ALS unit that you have a paramedic where they have medications and they are trying to do several things, where a BLS has EMTs only, which do not do any medications at all, really, other than Narcan. And so there's less of a. My question is, you were asking for, I think, 8 And so I was wondering what was the rationale? Why 8? Are you distributing throughout the county? Are you putting them on ALS, QRS? Because typically QRS gets there before anybody because they're the ones closest, usually. Not always. That's how it works in most places.
To be honest, I apologize. I focused on it from a legal perspective and trying to figure out whether it met the parameters of the trust. And so I looked at it to try and understand whether we could fit within the Schedule E, which I believe it does. But I don't have enough detail for you to justify it in the practical sense in which it's being used. And I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you.
If I could,
Other questions?
no, but if I could add a few things just for informational purposes.
Okay, Stuart, go ahead.
I'm Stuart Fisk. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've worked in the field of substance use disorder and treatment and primary care for many years, as well as kind of working with street medicine and been present in overdoses and used Narcan. So in talk, and I'm not an EMT, and I've not worked as an EMT or a paramedic or on any kind of like emergency services. But from what I know about opioid overdose, a couple things. One, the environmental presence of synthetic opioids or natural opioids or any of those things, they do not present, and this has been proven over and over again, they do not present any danger to a first responder, even somebody who's providing mouth to mouth. So the primary thing that people who have overdosed need is oxygen. The reason the heart stopped is because the oxygen level in the body has gotten so low that the heart stops working. Once the heart stops working and there's no shockable rhythm, it's my understanding that the survival rates are, no pun intended, shockingly low in opioid overdoses. So the immediate thing that people need to be able to do is to provide naloxone, which works in 3 to 5 minutes. So by the time the Lucas chest compressions have been set up, the naloxone should be working if the person has the possibility for restoring a cardiac rhythm. CPR certainly can be helpful. I'm not saying that CPR is not helpful. So a couple of the suppositions that you're using, I just wanted to kind of point out. Don't really have any factual basis. There's also, if you look at, big systematic reviews of mechanical devices versus manual CPR, there's really no evidence that mechanical CPR is superior over manual CPR. So it's not to say that in specific instances that it might be helpful, but overall, there's really not any evidence that one is superior over the other. What is effective is naloxone first, oxygen second, and oxygen should be able to be administered by any EMT or first responder without respirations. They can either bag somebody or they can provide oxygen flow through a mask or cannula. And Commissioner Boozley, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So the need for chest compressions, if there's no shockable rhythm, meaning you can't use an AED, does not bring back, a respectable heart rhythm. The survival rates on these are very low, regardless of what type of chest compressions are administered. Again, you might save somebody's life, but in the presence of an opioid, particularly now with the new drugs that are being found in the illicit drug supply, which include drugs like xylazine and medetomidine and nitazenes, which are sedatives. So those do not necessarily stop breathing. They just mean that somebody's not arousable. It becomes a little bit more complicated about what types of interventions we really need to be doing to provide sustained life support for someone until they can get in hospital. So that's just my knowledge of the situation of the devices. So I can't really say one way or the other whether these devices are going to be helpful or not. I think in talking to at least one EMT here in Pittsburgh who's got extensive experience in being present at overdoses and has been trained in team CPR, which is 4 or 5 people providing CPR, that he did not really feel like the Lucas compression devices were all that helpful for them in the absence of people really understanding how to do CPR. So all that aside, I do think that you're correct that under Exhibit E, that training for CPR and the ability for effective CPR to be delivered in conjunction with naloxone, in conjunction with calling 911 and EMT is really critical. And we've seen drops in opioid overdose deaths, I think, in part because of the, those interventions. I don't think we've seen any evidence that compression devices have added any benefit.
I think I appreciate the fact that you have much, much more medical experience than I do. And
Yeah,
this
no,
is
I'm
brand-
not trying to like, outsmart
Yeah.
you. Just trying to put that
No, that's
in conversation. You're muted again. You're muted.
You're muted again. We can't hear you. Not yet.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now. Yes.
Sorry, you're going to hear drilling in the background, but my apologies. No, I apologize. I don't have the medical background or device, but to me, it seems very practical. And in the reading that I've done, I understand that you disagree with the evidence-based information that we've put forth to support why we think it's beneficial to the county and why the folks that are trying to make this decision for their first responders and the use of their first responders to respond to these situations feel it would be beneficial. But I think we've attached that. But I do believe from a legal perspective, if there is an opioid fund that is, and we're meeting the definitions of that fund within Exhibit E, I think any one life saved is beneficial. I agree that cardiac arrest, not only from an opioid, but just from a simple cardiac arrest is very, very has low numbers in terms of the ability to be successful. And that's because it does take time to get there. It does take time to give CPR. But as demonstrated by the video, if you have a situation with more than one individual, if you have a situation where someone needs to be transported back to the hospital, where someone needs to continue to get these chest compressions, I from a non-medical person, I just see the benefit of having there be a consistent, effective pressure. And from a legal perspective, I see it fitting within the Opioid Administration Trust.
You are correct that it is our job to see if it falls within Exhibit E. But we've had many instances where something is being purchased, not just for opioid-related and opioid-related drugs, but also is being used for a number of other things. For example, we've had requests to buy an ambulance. Well, we have disapproved it, even though clearly an ambulance can be used for helping and would fall within Exhibit E. But if it's being used for many things, do you have any idea how many cardiac arrest situations are drug-related versus anything else?
I thought in my reading, once again, non-medical, that the opioid cardiac arrest was one of the highest incidents of death for folks ages 18 to, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I believe it's a pretty high number because the drug causes the brain to stop breathing. And so this effective machine is getting oxygen to the brain. And so
no, but there's many instances, there's many things that cause cardiac arrest over and above drugs. I'm wondering in the use in Delaware County, that's why I was hoping that you did have some in use, so you could give some idea of what percentage of the cost was going to be going to opioids or opioid-related drugs, or just for general purposes to aid in cases of cardiac arrest.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to be approved for this equipment so that we can be successful in providing the statistics when we come back and ask for more so we can get more machines. But until we have that, unfortunately, I don't have that statistic for you.
Okay, and one other question is, what portion of the $175,000 that is being used for these machines will be used for training, et cetera? Clearly, training is something that's for first responders is something that's allowed, but have you broken out any specific amount of the 175,000 that you're asking for that would go to for training purposes?
I don't have that because I wasn't involved in the initial submission, but perhaps Sandra, you can speak to
That
that.
was, so the 175,000 was for the purchase, the training would be done, that would be done by the county staff, was going to be in kind, but I can get that amount if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
So the total, and just to clarify, so the total cost that you're asking for is purely for the purchase of the devices without any training. You'll be supplying it in kind, you said.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
Follow-up question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking
Certainly.
at page 35 of your submission. If you can get to that page, it's basically the appeal attachment for the remediation program, and it's talking about evidence-based, evidence-informed support for use of Lucas
Yep.
chest compressions. Was this provided to you by the Lucas company, or where did this particular come from?
No, this is my non-medical based
Okay.
background.
Evidence-based and evidence-informed have a legal requirement to meet.
Okay.
So when you write that in there, you haven't met there's a huge criteria to meet evidence-based and evidence-informed criteria. To write it in there, I was wondering where this came from because I'd not seen this, and I've looked for evidence-based anything on Lucas. And
No, that's, I apologize because I am a lawyer, and if I didn't meet the legal criteria, I apologize that I don't know what that was. But the evidence-based, I was trying to show you because there wasn't enough evidence-based direct links attaching it. So I was trying to find as much evidence-based support because this is newer technology. It doesn't exist. Obviously, we don't get that evidence until we actually use the technology in the field. And so that's what we're hoping to do so that we can come back with, I guess,
I do like how you cited it. You cited it very well at the bottom of it. I'm like, oh, look at that. Maybe this is like legit. Like that's why I had to ask. Sorry.
It took a long time.
I just would be very careful about putting that on a document. It's a criteria you have to meet. So that's all.
My apologies. If I did it incorrectly, I apologize. This is new to me. I am not medical. I tried to get into it. I've learned a lot about it. To me, it seems self-evident that this is beneficial. But like I said, I don't have the experience that the folks that have spoken about the experience we're sharing.
No harm. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing that because I was searching for that. And I thought, oh, she did it for me. That was cool. But
it's a whole lot of research.
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you very much for the presentation. Does anybody want to have an executive session? Otherwise, we can have whatever discussion we're going to have and take a vote.
If I could just clarify a couple of things in my mind. This is again Rob Postal. The 6 devices are not meant to cover the entire county. Is that correct?
I don't think that they can cover the entire county. I think we have more than 6 ambulances.
Okay. And none of the 175,000 plus minus is being expended for training. The training is an in-kind contribution by the county. So the 175 is for it's direct cost of the devices.
I had thought that some of it was for training, but I will leave that to Sandy. I thought that they are training. I don't know if that's in conjunction with, if that's done in conjunction with Stryker, or if there's a cost involved in that, but there's certainly training that's going on with respect to it. And there's a cost involved in that.
I picked that up in one of the pages. I just got rid of the pages, but it was something that Commissioner Boozle was referring to, and it did say equipment and training, and that's what I was trying to get at. How much of this is training and how much of this is direct cost? Okay.
Yeah. I think the majority it's fair to say that it's direct cost.
So they're about $30,000 a unit.
I think they are about, between 20 and 30, depending.
Yeah, that's what I understand to be around. Probably depends on the numbers that you're able to purchase, but they can go down
Yeah,
towards
and I think you
20,
can,
but they tend to sit around between 25 and 30,000.
and I think older models you might get for like 15, I think.
Okay, any other comments by any?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I was just, so you all are saying this won't be deployed across the entire county. So do you have any rationale for where and how you guys are going to deploy the 6 if we will move forward?
With it, we would look to the emergency, I mean, the responders across the county. I will say, I mean, I know it's no secret, everything that's happening with Prospect Crozier in Delaware County, and I would think that the majority would, because of that, and the deficits that are now happening in the city of Chester, would probably go towards Chester and probably Upper Darby as well, which is a larger populated area within the county.
Do those areas correlate to where you all are seeing, where you all see the impact of the opioid, whether that's overdoses or not fatal, yeah, I guess overdoses, is there any correlation in your thinking on how to align it towards those areas, if you have those areas? Because if you don't, and it's a little more spread out or a little more hidden, I understand that as well.
I think it's probably a little more spread out through the county. I think part of the rationale were some of the more equipped emergency services units in the wealthier areas of the county probably have the capacity to do additional things and probably have more up-to-date equipment and those types of stuff versus some of the more impoverished areas in the county. I know, and I haven't looked at the stats in a while, but I know like along the 95 corridor was a big area, which would include Chester and also include Upper Darby, if you go further, like the whole southeastern half of the county.
More impoverished areas.
Right, the more impoverished areas, the more areas were impact, again, not to focus on Prospect, but the issues that they were creating as well. That seemed to be the same general area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would also think that it would make sense to, if they were allowed to position those devices in places where there's going to be a longer distance from the site to a hospital, because it really is within the hospital that you're able to save people. The most effective CPR and other kind of medical supports can be provided there. So keeping someone alive until then can be really challenging, particularly if you are doing, I mean, I will admit, and I think it seems self-evident that doing, manual CPR in an ambulance for a long period of time with only one person is probably not going to be delivering the most effective chest compressions. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, Senator.
Say Crozier and Taylor Hospital closed. What's the closest from Chester or Upper Darby where you can get them to a medical facility? How long?
I would say at least, I mean, if you're talking a trauma center, I think the closest trauma center would be Lankenau. So I would say that's at least 30 minutes, probably longer. I know that's a big concern, not just as it relates to opioid, but just in general with, some of the concerns that happen in Chester and the shootings and that type of stuff, is not having that trauma center right there.
Is Ridley a trauma center?
I don't think Riddle has one.
A Riddle, thank you.
I don't believe, I could be wrong on that, but I believe I heard somebody say, because I'm also involved, obviously, in all the calls related to Prospect and how to address some of the gaps that are going to be left. I believe someone that calls it Lankenau is the closest trauma center.
Yeah, and Riddle, even if it were, would still be 15, 20 minutes, so.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions, discussion?
No.
Okay, with that, I'm going to propose a resolution. I would like to tell people from Delaware County that even if this resolution ends up approving the opioid trust and denying this particular $175,000 request, if in the future you are coming forth with requests for training or anything, there's no prejudice to your having submitted it and being denied, okay, in re-raising the question. With that, I'd like to ask for the following resolution: resolved that the trust hereby affirms that the Dispute Resolution Committee of the trust hereby affirms the decision of the Board of Trustees that Delaware County Program number 27 is not compliant with Exhibit E. A yes vote would maintain the current denial by the trust, whereas a no vote would reverse the decision by the trust that the program is not compliant with Exhibit E. Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So move. This is Postal.
Thank
Second,
you, Rob. Second?
second.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion of the resolution?
Just
All those in,
well,
excuse
just
me?
one statement, I'm sorry if I may,
Yep.
and I liked your comment, Tom, about no prejudice. I think that what I would encourage, no matter how this vote goes, what I would encourage is look at other programs that we have approved that have offered funding for EMS services. Take a look at how they get reimbursed for, because they only get reimbursed if they transport. You know, if you're doing leave behinds or you do messaging, you can supplement them. So I'm just putting it out there that there's other ways to supplement the services. So just suggestions, that's all. And if you want to talk to me about that, I'm more than willing to talk to anybody about it.
Sorry, and I'm on my screen. I don't see who's speaking. I apologize.
I'm sorry, it's Kevin Boozle, Commissioner.
Kevin Boozle.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The eye has it, as near as I can tell, by a 6-0 vote. So we are going to affirm the decision of the Board of Trustees, and we are saying that the program is not compliant with Exhibit E. So thank you all very much for your time. I'm speaking to the members of the Dispute Resolution Committee, but also thank you very much to the representatives of Delaware County. And hopefully we can find a way to make things work for you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.